G'day folks, and thanks for joining us again on Rex Hunt Fishing Adventures. We've got a good show for you tonight, so sit back and relax. Yibbida yibbida, roll the tape. Look at that! The old bearded birdler, he's in his element.
Throw it into his mouth.
Unbelievable, mate.
It's just like nature. It's what we're all about.
I tell you what, this is just fantastic. Wagons, ho! Oh, thank your mother for the rabbits.
Just when they think it's safe to come out.
It's not an animal!
Bang!
I guess in the end, that's probably why we all go fishing.
I've only been in the South Island of New Zealand 3 days, and already I'm planning for Lynn and I to come back as travelling tourist anglers. Yes, it's had that effect on me already. And fly fishing? Well, I think it's the mecca of fly fishing in the universe, and I'll just say that on record now. But what if you're a bait fisherman or a lure fisherman? We haven't left you out. A lot of you would know that I spend many happy days on Victoria's Goulburn River casting pieces of metal hour upon hour to catch half a dozen fish for the day. That's where I got my start. And that start of casting artificial lures to feeding trout led me into the wonderful world of fly fishing. I've got a pocket full of metal. I've got a beautiful stream, the Ahururi River, the lower reaches here in the mid-South Island of New Zealand. Come with me. Let's cast a line together. We've got a problem here, folks. I've had 2 trout in the last 2 casts follow me up. And what they're doing is they're looking at this thing from outer space and they say, what is that? They're feeding on the nymphal stage of the mayfly that's getting out of the top of the river here as we speak. So my better chance might be in the running water, where I cast slightly up and across stream and bring the vibrax across the current. Then the trout sees it, and he's got a split second to make up his mind. But that's the challenge of trout fishing. Challenges. Talk to me about it. Thank you very much. This particular lure is called a vibrax. It has a revolving blade. And it's really attractive to fish because it does pulsate in the stream. It certainly keeps your lure in the fishing zone.
Followed it in there.
Oh. This is not easy, folks. Now, a lot of people who pass sort of aspersions on lure fishermen just thinking they throw bits of metal and aluminium and hoping for the best. You still got to get them. You've got to know when to cast. You still got to catch them. I've had 2 or 3 absolute monsters follow that lure. And as I said, a bit of a challenge. I've certainly got one here. Just try that again. Out there. All right, I think I worked them out here, folks. I've got a number of fish in this deeper part of the pool, and what they're waiting for is the food to come down. I've had 2 or 3 really good follows by fish at least 1 kilo, which are serious fish for spin fishermen. And I'm going to cast down here. And what I'm going to do is let the lure drop down a little bit and bring it up against the current. There's
There's a trout behind it now.
Just let that sink along that bank down there. Bringing it against the current. Oh, gee. Well, hooly-dooly. Well, I'm glad that happened, folks, because I tell you what, I'd cast a lot of times down there, and look, he's got a mate behind him too. There's two, and another one. There's 3 fish actually following this fish in. Look at that. There's his mate, Inquisitive. He saw me and said, no, that's the fish kisser from Australia. What a beautiful brown trout. I tell you what, folks, he's around about, well, I reckon he's poking towards 1 kilo. And you can see clearly there as Brendan zooms into his big gob that the thing that did the damage was the fluorescent orange body on the vibrax. And that's particularly good towards their spawning time. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Just get the hook out. A perfect example of what I was telling you. The South Island, New Zealand. I'll pop him back. Oh, you want to go, don't you, mate? I'll pop him back. Come on now, off you go. Off you go. Off you go. And he'll be fine. Away he goes. A perfect example of what I was talking about. And I tell you what, I also have a dream like that famous American. But one day, I'll have trout fishing like that in Victoria. But lure fishing, it's a great introduction to the wonderful world of fly fishing.
In certain forms of sport and game fishing, we use what's called a double. As the name implies, it's a doubled length of line at the working end of our rig. It greatly improves our resistance to abrasion, and even more importantly, it means that any knots we tied are being tied in double line, and they're much, much stronger. Now, there are a couple of different knots that you can use to create a double, and we've shown you a few in the program in the past. They include things like the spider hitch and the bimini twist. But I want to show you what I regard as the very best double knot of all today. It's called a Plat. And to do it, I always like to put the rod in a rod holder or somewhere firm, actually feed the line through the runners and pull down on the tip, because what this does is create some tension, and tension is fairly important in this knot. Now, to begin the knot, we just pass the tag end behind the main line, pinch it together there, bring the tag into the center, and from there on it's just like plaiting hair or plaiting rope. You bring the outside one into the center all the time, just keep alternating them, bringing it into the center, but it's important to keep some tension on the 3 strands of line that you're working with as you plait them together. And just continue to plait down like that, bringing them into the center. Now, to finish this knot, we must have the tag end out on the left-hand side. So it's out on the right at the moment. We keep plaiting. And then when we bring it into the center, we can complete our knot. Now, to complete the knot, we just form a half hitch. It's useful to use your mouth here. Just pass it through there. Tighten that half hitch, a half hitch around the other leg of the double, then a half hitch around both strands. Now, there are a number of ways we can finish this knot off from here, but the one I like to do is just a series of half hitches around both strands of the double. Don't be afraid to do half a dozen or so. Some of them will eventually come undone because I like to trim that tag end really closely so that there's no lump sticking out there at all. Now, if that bumps backwards and forwards through the rod guides often enough, that first half hitch will eventually come undone. Doesn't matter. There are another half dozen half hitches there and they will never come undone. That knot acts like a spring or a shock absorber. It is a 100% knot. Trust me, I have tested this knot dozens and dozens of times. The knot never breaks, the main line does. It's the best knot I know. It's not the easiest, but it's worth learning. Remember it, the plaited double.
Number 40, that looks like mine. Hi folks, today I'm at the Sweetwater fishing pond in Thailand on the island of Phuket. And there are 3 species of fish in here we're going to catch that are a little bit different. First, we've got a species of catfish. Then we've got a snakehead, which if it bites a dog, the dog dies. And last of all, there's a fish called a brassawai, which I've never caught before and I'm dead keen to mix it with. Let's have a try. Well, this looks like a pretty good brassawai spot to me. Regular visitors come from around the globe in search of the elusive brassawai. They all have their favourite spots, their secret rigs and their special burley mixtures, but nobody's too keen to give the new boy on the block an even break. And the word here, folks, is patience. And let me tell you, you need a lot of that in this tropical heat. Everyone has their own theories on how to catch these cagey fish, but so far, all I've seen are the old-fashioned brown catfish. Look at that. Well, looks like I'm going to have my first look at a brassawai. That's what we've come for, folks. I wasn't good enough to catch one, but Walter, who owns the place, he's done the trick. Look at that. Now that is one weird fish. Shiny, lots of fins. It's not unlike our threadfin in Australia, but that's quite a weird fish. Just get the hook out of him for you there. Have a look at his mouth. He's got some really small little whiskers there, but not as big as a threadfin. It's quite a streamlined fish. Nice fins, no spikes. Very friendly fish, and Walter assures me that this is a small one.
That's a small one.
That's a small one. Okay, so we'll go and have another try, and I'll see if I can get one. Well done, Walter. I think the locals have got the right idea here. Lunch before the afternoon session. As you can see, there's not a lot of action at the weighing station. Oh, I'm gonna believe this. All right. Okay, now, this is a pretty tough crew to work with, folks. You can see this exotic piece of equipment here is actually Noel's rod, and Noel has snuck it in the water while I wasn't looking, and it's got a fish on it, which I can't catch. So we're going to give you a look at a catfish. Now, these catfish haven't got spikes on, Walter. They're supposedly non-spiky ones. If you did this in Australia, you would have a lot of trouble. Now, that is a very slippery little critter. Look at the whiskers on that, but more whiskers than Rexy. Look at that. So apart from the brassawai, that's one of the other species that's in here. Now, they're not a particularly aggressive fighter, but they do live in the pond, and they certainly put a little bit of a bend in the rod. Now, you do have to watch them. They're not quite as spiky as our Australian ones, but there is a spike in there and in the other little fin, and there'll be one on the top too. Oh no, this one hasn't got one on the top. Our ones in Australia have got 3 spikes. This one's only got 2. All right, well, that's just one of the other species in the pond, but I've still got to get the brassawai. Now, if you're ever in Phuket and you're chasing a brassawai, this is the trick to the rigging. We've got a little chemically sharpened hook, about a number 2, like that. It's quite a strong hook, but it's small because these are pretty tricky fish. Now, what I've got here is a mixture of dough and fish pellets and 47 secret herbs and spices, of which I have no idea what it really is. And we get that and we knead it so that it makes a nice tight little ball, and we have to knead it so that it hangs onto that line and that hook. And when we throw it out, there are a lot of small fish in this pond, and they come up and go nibble, nibble, nibble. but they can't pull that off the hook. And when a brassawai comes up, he has a bigger mouth, he'll swallow that whole thing, I hope, and we'll catch him. Now, that is supported by a little float, which is running. That means it's sliding on the line, and about 2 metres up, we've got a little rubber stopper. So when I throw this out, that's going to go down, it'll balance the float up so it sticks up like a little lighthouse, and if we've done it properly, the small fish will make it jiggle, and the bigger fish, the brassawai, will just pull it under quite quickly. At least I'm hoping they will. Well, it's raining. I've had to abandon the grass hut. I've come up here to the umbrella, but it's okay. The crew's under a nice shed and they've had lunch. They're all fine, but I'm out here still trying for you, folks. I've seen one of these brassawai come in and I'm not going till it gets dark or I catch one. I hope. Well, I haven't been able to catch the big one, but at least we've shown you what a brassawai looks like. But I'm not going to admit defeat. I don't care if it rains, I don't care if it gets dark, I'm staying. The boys can pick me up in the morning.